Totally different time scale. And who owns time? You own time? I wanted to go home, planning this now. I failed. Because we don't own time. We go against time. At least we be on time. Right? But Allah owns time. Wal asri, by time. Which some translators of the Mufassirun of the Qur'an says, Allah is mentioning Him, by Him. Wal asri, it also means by Him who owns time. Allah creates time. And time can stop in Allah's time. Right? Today there's a lot of end of time. You go YouTube, you watch YouTube, you have time to watch YouTube, and you ask the students, no. Only those who have graduated watch YouTube. You don't have anything else to do after that, right? So if you see that people are talking about end times, and there's so many things that people talk about when it will happen. Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, when Jibril came, Mata Sa'a, Jibril asked a very simple yet deep question. When a Sa'a is the time, the end of time. When will it happen? Mata Sa'a. A Sa'a also means time, hour, right? So time was a concern, not only to us, human beings, to all creation of God, because we are limited by time. Mata Sa'a, when is the end time? That was a simple question. So Rasulullah answered, the one who asks and the one who is being asked don't know. Right? But today sometimes you go YouTube, people already giving you time. 2029, Mahdi will come. So be prepared with your horses. That's what I say. We don't have time. We are clueless to what will happen 30 minutes from now. Clueless. We are the travelers. So, but Allah says, ask me. Ud'uni astajib lakum. Ask me, I will just reply to your questions. So how? In the time of Sahaba, let me start with this story. You know Abu Hurairah? You know Abu Hurairah? You know him personally? Your friend, Facebook, dear friend. Abu Hurairah, right? I would say Muslims would know Abu Hurairah by name, right? What's his real name? Abu Hurairah is his kunya. He is called by that because he loves cat. He has this one cat that is with him on the day and night. So Rasulullah called him that. He has another name, Abu Hir. So all kittens and cats. So what is his real name? First, this is part of understanding if your dua would be responded by God. Why? Because you need to put things in its rightful place. Then Allah will respond. By understanding who Abu Hurairah is, we are appreciating who he is in the scale of time of great personalities that have walked on this earth. His name is Abdul Rahman bin Sakhar. Abdul Rahman bin Sakhar. Sad Khara. Abdul Rahman bin Sakhar. This name was given by the Prophet. Abdul Rahman. Sakhar is his father. He entered into Islam only about 4 years before Nabi Muhammad passed away. So he was with Nabi Muhammad only for about 4 years. But he narrated 5,346 ahadith, which is recorded in the Bukhari. So only met the Prophet for 4 years, but is the most who collected sayings of the Prophet among all the companions. That itself is a miracle. That itself is because of dua. One day, he was in the majlis. This guy, Rasulullah was in the majlis. So Rasulullah said, whoever would open up his shawl, the rida shawl, you wear this kind of shawl. Open it, it up. I will pour onto it my words for him to react. So what he did was, he was the first one who did that, right? Then Muhammad took the shawl and enveloped it around Abu Hurairah. He said from that day onwards, whatever was said by the Prophet, you won't be able to forget. See how much difference Abu Hurairah and us. Ar-Rahimuna yarhamuhumur Rahman. One line. See the power of a dua from a chosen of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So that's one part of dua. Who is the person who performs that dua? One day, he returned back home. He was among those who lived as those poor companions, Ahlul Sufa, just at the back of the house of the Prophet ﷺ. One day he returned home to his mother, who is not Muslim at that time. Entered into the house, the mother was swearing onto the Prophet. Charlie Hebdo, those cartoons about the Prophet. Because Muhammad had it during his time, directly onto him. So, entered the house, the mother was doing all this vulgarities towards the Prophet. Abu Hurairah, because he respected his mother, he did not react. He left the house, crying, met the Prophet. While he was crying, he told this story of what the mother was just did at home. So this was the word of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Allahumma hadi umma Abi Hurairah. So simple. Allahumma hadi umma Abi Hurairah. Oh Allah, provide guidance, hidayah to the mother of Abu Hurairah. Upon hearing that dua of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, Abu Hurairah was overjoyed. Overjoyed. Before even knowing of whether it has been received by God, right? That's the second lesson about dua. Is that once you perform a dua, or you ask a person to dua for you, you need to be positive towards that dua. You cannot have doubts. You go, Ya Allah, help me with my exams, but inside your heart, I might fail. You know? You can't. Once you ask, you have to have that. For Abu Hurairah, it was overjoyed. He was overjoyed. He was crying. And when he heard it, Allahumma hadi umma Abi Hurairah, he was overjoyed. He has not met his mother. He knew how his mother hated the Prophet. But he was overjoyed by hearing those 5 words that were mentioned by the Prophet. What did he do after that? He rushed back home. Upon reaching home, he heard in the house, there were a lot of movements in the house. Water was draining out. But the mother was doing a lot of stuff at home. And then he saw the mother there, opened the door of the house, took her donkey, took her donkey and wanted to leave. Saw him, then the mother said, Ashhadu an la ilaha illallah wa ashhadu anna Muhammadan abduhu wa rasuluh. Entered into Islam without a word from Abu Hurairah. And at that time, she was on her donkey. So never say a woman cannot drive. They got it wrong. They got it wrong. They did not read hadith. They didn't understand how it was. She had her own personal Porsche. It was the donkey at that time. So you see, you change a person's life with that simple utterance of 5 words coming from the Prophet. So there are so many lessons for us to learn from this particular history of a Sahaba, and a lot of them. We know the story of Sayyidina Umar, right? So what are the lessons for us? How do we apply this to us? Number one, there is dua in Islam. There is this door that you can knock on to wait for it to open and to receive what you wish for. There is this vision that there is. You have to have this certainty, yaqeen. This is the first condition of dua. You have to have certainty to what you are asking. Okay? Good. Yaqeen. Number 2, you need to be able to know who and when to ask dua. To whom do I ask for dua? Can I do it myself? For sure you can do it yourself. Abu Hurairah, why didn't he ask Hidayah for his mother? Because he could have done that, right? But he knew there is another person out there whose words would knock on the doors and receive a faster gate to go in and be replied upon, right? So you need to find these people, the Ahlullah, these people of God. There are all over the world. Allah has His Ahl, His people, Ahlullah. So you seek for Awliya Salihin. We look for saints, not to ask the saints, not to pray to the saints. No, this is a wrong kind of understanding. The Sahaba, when Nabi Muhammad has passed away, there was a drought in Medina. No rainfall. So they went to the maqam of Sayyidina Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and then brought the uncle of the Prophet, Abbas, and said onto the maqam, Ya Rasulullah, when you were alive, when such a thing happened to us in Medina, we would ask you for you to ask Allah for rain, and it rained upon us. But now you're not here, we're asking through your uncle Abbas for rain to come upon us. And then it rained. So the Sahaba understood this. And who are these Sahabas? They are people who are close to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. When Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam mentioned to Sayyidina Umar and Sayyidina Ali to look for a person, Uwais al-Qarni. You know the story? Uwais al-Qarni? You've heard of him? Very good. Uwais al-Qarni lived in the time of the Prophet, but it's not a Sahaba. It's not a companion. He's a tabi'in, those who met the companion but did not get to meet the Prophet. But he lived in the time of the Prophet. Why didn't he get to meet Nabi Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam? Because he was 100% giving his devotion to his mother. He was living in Yemen, so he did not have the chance to leave his mother. He was taking great care. Once he left his mother to meet the Prophet, he reached in Medina, in front of the house of the Prophet, knocked on the door. The Prophet was out. He returned back because time limit, so he had to return to meet his mom. So he tried to meet the Prophet, he did not. So he's a tabi'in and the best of tabi'in. And Rasulullah asked 2 companions, one of the greatest companions, Sayyidina Umar, Sayyidina Ali, to look out for Uwais al-Qarni. So they met him after the Prophet passed away. They met him when he came for Hajj. Then they were told by the Prophet to ask from Uwais to dua for that. Sayyidina Abu Bakr, Sayyidina Umar, and Sayyidina Ali are among those mubasharat, those 10 who are confirmed their place in Jannah. Yet the Prophet asked them to look for this guy, to seek dua. What are these lessons? The Prophet is trying to tell us, be humble. Don't believe that only your words travel into the sky. Continuously look for people who are whispering to angels in the skies. So, number 3 lesson, be humble in asking Allah. Number 4, some people ask, things are fated, are already written by God, right? Why do I need to perform dua? Imam Al-Ghazali says, dua is part of faith. By performing dua, you're doing that, you're acting upon that is fated by God. So dua is also part of life. There's this dua by the Prophet, حوالينا ولا علينا. Very simple dua. حوالينا ولا علينا. He would request this dua whenever it rains heavily in Medina. So he would say, حوالينا ولا علينا. So let the rain fall, but not onto us, but around us. حوالينا ولا علينا. It changes the fate of that particular rain that fell. So don't worry, say it is fated. How do you know it's fated? You know fate? You have read Law Mahfuz, you've been there? But what we are taught is that we won't know that, but we are taught to ask. That is fated. Ask. Don't discount Allah's kun. In Surah Yasin, kun fayakun, right? Be and it will come, right? Don't discount it, because Allah is Al-Hayyul Qayyum. When Allah is Al-Hayyul Qayyum, means Allah is very much alive and living. He responds. When you call a friend at home, when he's still sleeping, you believe that he's still alive, right? Because he's sleeping. The hope for him to wake up is about 6 hours after that. Right? Especially if you have suffered an emergency, assignment is not finished yet. Right? Last minute work. Then you call this guy, keeps on like, he's nowhere to be found. Just one day. Right? But you know he's alive. But he's not responding yet. Right? But you believe that you will find ways to wake him up, right? Then you call his sisters. Worst comes to worst, you go grab him up. Allah is alive, never asleep. We read in Ayatul Kursi, right? Allah la ilaha illa huwal hayyul qayyum la ta'khudhuhu sinatun wa la nawm. Allah never mengantuk orang tu. Orang tu kan mengantuk kan orang. Get sleepy ya, boleh. Don't become translator of Quran. Allah does not get sleepy. It's alright from Quran. So Allah does not slumber. Does not slumber. And Allah does not sleep. Allah is aware. So he said it's close. The problem is, he's aware, but are we aware? We're always thinking that we are aware that he is not aware of us. But let us put our God's caps on. Right? He is the one who created us. Right? He knows us better than we know ourselves. If he had created for us from day one till the end of our time, right? He would be aware of what we will ask. But what is he waiting for? He is waiting for you to be aware that he is aware. You get that? You need to be aware of him. You need to reconnect back to him. Awareness. Ala bi dhikrillahi tatma'innul qulub. Indeed, in the remembrance of God, you attain peace. Why do you attain peace? Because awareness of God is present. When the real awareness is present, you are elevated to that state of awareness. Today, we are aware, but on what kind of level are we aware? I ask you a question. What are the unseen things that you are aware now? Unseen, eh? Material, we're tired of material things, right? We are so materialistic. So we have the material things that have gauged our life, right? So we are surrounded by all these material things, making things easy for us, which is good for this dunya, alhamdulillah. This helps, right? I have to shout. But it's a cease. Let us today go a bit more than material. Let us go to the unseen. What are you aware of the unseen? What are the categories of the unseen that you're aware of? Number one. Anyone? Kasha?
Fiction.
What, physics? Okay, very good. I should not go there. Can. Yeah. Fiction, physics, is it? I'm not a science student, I always feel science, sorry. I'm a philosophy student, so you know the difference between science and philosophy? Cannot be. I tried lah, I failed, so not really that. So very good, right? Friction, you explain lah, I'm not going to explain. Okay, I can't don't see anything else. Other than that, what else?
Death.
Very good. Death. Unseen. Is it real? Is it real? Have you seen a person going through death? Nowadays you can go YouTube, you type near-death experience, NDE, right? People are telling, well, a Muslim met Jesus, and Jesus said you should become a Christian. You know, they play around this, and you, because you have never had that experience, you suddenly, don't doubt lah, this is his story lah, fine lah. You know, don't doubt. Don't doubt. My first point, certainty. Remember? Certainty. You have your whole, whatever others say, let them be. You have to have your own yaqeen. You can't. If not, you're going to be affected by all news. You can't. Knowledge builds certainty. Rightful knowledge, not fake news. You have to understand in terms of Islam, it is knowledge. Death, very good. Between friction and death. It meets. There's friction in death. Right? My understanding of friction. Eh? Okay, very good. We'll just collate further. Number two, death. Number three, unseen. That is real. That you're aware of. Huh? Regret. Yeah, these kind of things are categorized under what? Regret. You have a lot of regrets or what? Fiction I can understand, except right. I can understand. Regrets why? Which year are you in now? Fourth year. Fourth year I can understand. I was a university student before, so I understand. Fourth year always the regret, right? Unseen, I can. Very good. Friction, death, regret. Cool. Come on. Anywhere. Come on, huh?
The soul.
The soul. Whoa. Not going there. Friction, death, regret, soul. So, we'll pick 10 now. Angels. All related, huh? Friction, death, regret, soul, angel. You know where we're going now? You see that? Next. Huh? What? G. No, I thought going up. Going back. Down. Okay, I can. Jinn. Because the state is already is now. Jinn. Jinn is down, right? You have to understand, no, Jinn is there. Not here even. Jinn. Jinn or genie? Okay, man. Jinn. Okay, next. Next. Four more. Huh? Oh. No, at least regret. You found Jinn, you found love. Okay, love, very good. Unseen, but felt. Very good, love. Next, three more. Come on, bring it somewhere. Huh? Huh? Allah. Allah only appears number 7 after jinn. Bad. Allah. I'm not like, Allah listens to Allah. Very good. Two more. Two more.
Heaven and hell.
Oh, you settled the whole thing. Heaven? Heaven and? Very good. Okay, you got the friction. I'm not going to talk about it. You can meet Akasha after this. Explain. Then we talk about the second part. What is the second part? Death. We know it's real, but it's unseen and it will be seen. Right? So some things that we relate to, which is unseen, is what we expect to see. Death. Right? And then we have mentioned angels. Right? Then we mentioned jinn. Can jinn. You want to see jinn? You want to see jinn of who? You can go YouTube lah, just see YouTube. You type ruqyah. I give you all the keywords lah, easy for you. Don't type jinn, you type ruqyah or Islamic exorcism. Then you can see the voice. Nothing, you don't get anything. There is jinn, so what? Jinn are not meant for us. Jinn is another creation sharing the space, although unseen, right? Having their own task to perform. وَمَا خَلَقْتُ الْجِنَّ وَالْإِنسَ إِلَّا لِيَعْبُدُونِ. The same. I have not created jinn and mankind for them to, except for them to serve me. So you cannot equate yourself to wanting to know jinn. Flawed mentality. Right? Because jinn is lower than us. They are performing the same kind of role. So this sometimes, if you listen to radio jam 12 malam, misteri jam 12, don't waste time lah, tolong. I don't understand this Malay stupidity. Oh yeah, recorded again. So I'm just saying this part, don't get me wrong. I'm all Malay. My PhD is on the Malay richness of the Malay culture and heritage. So I love the Malay culture. But out of this, we have this part, stupidity, in the sense of you kill yourself because you have a bigger goal than that. So, angel death. Death is not a thing, and it's a phase that you go through birth, then you see death. Right? Death is just an occasion. It happens, and then you're transferred. Right? It's just a moment, it's time, that's it. And then you enter into another realm. Right? Fine, that's good. But due to that short moment, you fear. You fear that? I fear that. Tell you, okay? You want to say never mind. You don't fear that? Tomorrow you call my grandma. Ready? Anytime. Come. I know. My dua is Allah tawil amarana sahir. That is my dua. Allah lengthen upon me my life and give goodness and health. Because I know I'm not prepared. So there's a lot more things that I have to prepare. If you're ready, fine, go. There's a lot of space, don't worry. You know Habil Qabil? Abel and Cain? He's the first, right? Habil is the first one to enter into Barzakh. This was killed by Qabil, right? Just imagine how many million years he has been there, right? Enjoying the parking. Hey, what is he doing? So long life. Huh? Long life, no, in barzakh. No, barzakh is life. You have to understand this. Barzakh is life. You have life there. But the form differs. You will be sleeping, some people will be like visiting, some people will already start their heavenly journey, some people are starting their hellish moment. It's life. It's life. That is what is meant for. It's also a village. It's a global village. The first global village is not our time, not globalization. It started from Habil, the global village of Barzakh. There's no nation. There's no United Nations. So you enter into that, then you're transferred into that realm. Very good. Then angels. Unseen. Right? But real. You forgot that angels are with you on a daily basis. Not jinn. Right? Who are with us? Forgot their names. Please, don't forget. Listening tau. Raqib and Atid. Raqib and Atid. They have been given the task for them to accompany us throughout our earthly life, for them to become gods. Scribes, God scribes. Because God needs to show us the truth. So God created a system to portray the truth. Because we need to not be answerable to God. We need to project what we have done to God. It's a presentation, right? We're going to present to God, okay, this is what you have given me 60 years of my life, this is what I have done. And then this Rakib and Atif will be saying, yes. See, American Idol, you know the jury? You sit, you say, oh, this is good. Rakib and Atif will be doing that, sitting there. They say, oh, this is good, this is true, this is not. So because we're going to present ourselves. Why is that true? Because Nabi Adam alayhi salam, when he was created, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala taught him all the names. And then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala brought him to that greatest convocation. The first convocation was Nabi Adam alayhi salam. That's why we are attracted to the idea of a university. Because our father was a genius. And Adam knew all names. He was a genius. He was greater than Einstein. No, you have to know that. Because his teacher was God. You become the best student when your teacher is the best. Right? His teacher was directly Allah. So when Allah has taught him, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala showed him to the rest of the class who failed. And so he was the one who succeeded. He was the chosen one. Then Allah told him, before asking him, Allah asked the rest, name me all these things. Right? So this is Subhanaka la ilma lana illa ma allamtana innaka antal alim hakim. You know, most gracious are you, most pure are you, God. We do not know what you have taught us. Then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala told Adam, tell them the names. So that was that. After that was valedictorian. So that was the first valedictorian. So he presented. Everybody was happy. Some not happy, but they had to sujood, they sujood. Except that the jinn, your friend whoever says jinn or something, he did not. So he failed to proceed because he says, I am created from fire. He's created from earth. I am greater than him. Humbleness was not there. But he asked God, says, let me be among those who would be extended their time. Right? He performed dua. And he was given the dua. God's graciousness doesn't stop even to Iblis. Dua, Allah is close by. Dua, Allah will give you. But the power of dua lies in you are aware of the tangent that your dua fulfills what Allah wants from you. You can ask for those things that Allah do not want of you. You can ask, Allah can give. But while He gives, He does not rida. He is not pleased. He gives, but He is not pleased. We do not want that. That is not called dua, that is called istidraj. Istidraj is the opposite of blessedness in giving. Allah can give you karamah, blessedness. He gives you something extra. But He also gives to Fir'aun, He gives to Haman, He gives to Qarun, He gives to Lut and the Ahlul Lut. He gives, but He is not pleased. So we do not want to fall under those who attain what they seek from God, but Allah is not pleased. So you need to understand the next point is that ask, but what is pleasing for God to give you. How do you know that? Knowledge, Sharia. You know of what Allah wants. Right? Nabi Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam says, "Innamal a'malu bin." Every intention comes upon the action that you perform. But He also said, for whoever who migrated to get married, they will get what they wish for. Right? Intentions count, but it also depends on what you intend. Right? If you intend for Allah and His Prophet, you attain Allah and His Prophet. But if you intend for something else than Allah and His Prophet, you will attain too. But that is only for you. So ask whatever you want. No issue, no problem. Then we talk about heaven and hell. Have you been there? Never. But how do we know of this conception of heaven and hell? From Qur'an, for us, right? But how can you be assured that it is present? Is it so confident just now, heaven and hell? It will not be heaven and hell. Huh? Because you have certainty to the word of God. So it's the same as your dua. You need to be certain to what you ask from Allah. Due to that certainty, you will attain. When you study for your exams, right? You study for your exams. And then you dua. At that particular moment that you dua for your exams, right? That dua is sandwiched between your certainty based upon how much you have studied. Right? That's dua then. One who has not studied, dua, and another person who has studied, dua, the same dua. Ya Allah, make it easy for me, for example. Allah mayassir wa la tu'assir, for example, right? The same dua that is performed by two persons, one who has studied, has certainty in uttering those words. For that person who has not studied, uttering that word will cast doubt in himself. Right? Unless you are above that, I don't need to study, I am still certain of my dua. Try lah, don't study. Try. No need try, but don't have doubts in your dua. Try lah, don't study, but don't have doubt. Means you angkat tangan, you pray to Allah, Ya Allah, I want. Nowadays what? Here is what? What's the grade? The highest is what? A plus. Well, here still go A, B. So A plus. Ya Allah, I know you will give me A plus. Even if I have not touched a single note, I have been absent 90%. Ya Allah, because I hold on to you for me to attain A plus. See tomorrow what your result is. See now. I finished my O-level, my university, settled. I don't need this kind of dua anymore. Alhamdulillah. But you guys are still in it, 4th year. Regret? Maybe regret because of that lah. So Rasulullah SAW told his companions, tie the horse and then give it to God. Right? Means perform your task. You perform your task. You study, but don't forget that your study is not the confirmation of your success. It is that opening from God that will ease the process of you in that examination hall. Right? Only block. I tell you a story. This is within this, until you edit, don't tell people that. I took my O-level the first time about 20 years ago, or 30 years ago. Not in Singapore, I was away at the time. O-level. Right? Don't give up. Never give up. Never believe that, oh, no way, then jump flat. Nowadays, a lot of parents say, run away from home. See our children nowadays, because they believe only in their effort. They forgot God has a story to tell. Right? You are actually opening the doors of the story of God that He has written for you. Because He is the most beautiful. When Allah is the most beautiful, your life will be beautiful. You have to have that certainty of who God is. He reflects upon how you are aware of Him. You know the story of Nabi Yusuf in the Quran? Nabi Yusuf, you know Joseph in the Quran? Starts from that dream that he had and a child. It ends with the reality of that dream, right? And the whole phases of that, the difficulties, the enmity, the rewards, the gifts, the knowledge that he had. The story of Yusuf is actually the image of all of our lives. God is trying to show us there is a story that He wants to tell to everyone that He has created. So be joyful towards life. When you're positive towards God, you will see this joy in failures, in difficulties, because the end will be beautiful. Don't hope for tomorrow will be beautiful. Sometimes tomorrow is ugly. But then, 30 years from that ugliness, beauty. You know diamond? I mean, fiction. Diamond, right? Where is it? Explain to me diamond. You know fiction, you don't know diamond. A different kind of fiction. Simplify lah, Wikipedia part lah, like, you know, make it easy. Huh? You don't know nothing about diamond, okay lah. Tomorrow you Google, right? You know diamond? It is like where is it? Where can we find diamond? Huh? Yeah, you are a student. Ini apa? Kalau ada diamond, apa? Huh? Mines. Where is it? You know, you have the earth crust, like how many layers? Very deep. Okay, put it on. This is good. Okay, very deep lah. Okay, no, I take it. Sometimes you don't need to be the specialist lah. At least you know where it is, right? Very deep. Right, it is very deep. If not, you won't walk and find a diamond, you'll find stones and pebbles, right? You won't find diamonds. Diamonds is the process of extracting from one of the deepest layers of the crust of the earth, right? And the process of attaining that itself and then polishing it, and then it appears in those brands. What Swarovski, Sephora, whatever. I don't know. So it is branded, but when it is found on earth, it is not by that name. Right? It is attached upon because of the beauty of that particular stone. Right? Then it sells. Right? But the process is tedious. Right? It's not an easy process. We are all the soul that she talked about, the soul. That soul is deeper than the diamond. The reality of each and every soul is deeper than the diamond, but it is alive. It is there. And then it will be extracted out from the reality of death to all that fiction of life for it to attain When it is polished, the place is Swarovski hell, Swarovski heaven. That is where you are meant to be, because you have understood the journey. And that journey, for every phase, it is accompanied by your effort and your dua. This dua is uttered, is sought after, based upon you realizing the type of diamond that you are. Because every soul is unique. The journey of life will have the whiteness of the fitra when you are created will be tarnished with the colors of this life. By the end of time, you will be fully colored by the excesses that you paint in the steps that you take on this earth. So the rainbow that will appear at the end will define who you are, that soul. What color you want, it's up to you. If you want it to be black, black it will be. If you want it to be turquoise, it will be turquoise. And Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, when he entered into heaven during Mi'raj, one of the things that he saw and amazed him was the nur of Hurun Ain. You know Hurun Ain? Hurun Ain? Those. You know Hurun Ain? Very well, you are so innocent. Hurun Ain are those bidadari. Apa bidadari apa dia cakap? Besar dia kau? Huh? Paris. Boleh lah, safer word lah. Paris in heaven. Each and every one has been created companionship in heaven. Everyone has been created. Don't imagine Paris for male. No gender bias there. Don't worry. Over there, every soul has a companion. Every soul. And that soul, that companion is created in such a way that it equates to the need of that particular soul. So whatever that you need, you're finding your love in this earth, which never will happen, right? Because that love will turn sour and regret. Right? You will find that real love there. Whatever. Sometimes you feel pain, right, in love on earth. Right? Pain, no. No. Your love are all fairy tales. On earth, though you have not gone through the next phase of love. Maybe university is still a fairy tale. Then you see the reality one day, what love becomes. But there, the love that you will attain, because the language of heaven is love. The language of Ummah Muhammad is Rahmah. Yeah? It will escalate. When you enter into Jannah, it is hope, Mahabbah. That is the language, it is the ambience of heaven. It is love, nothing else. You won't be able to be angry in paradise because the ambience is love, it's hope. The ambience on earth now is what? Fake news. It's anger, hatred, right? Age of anger now they call it. Right? Because that is the ambience. You go online, you comment sarcastically, you are so natural to that. Habituated to have that ambience. Because the world created as such. Right? But on earth, in heaven, the ambience is love. The opposite in hell. The ambience is of regret. It's of regret, of hope that you will leave it to enter Jannah. For those in Jannah, it is love. And the ultimate love is that you seek in Jannah eternally to found the greatest love, that is meeting Allah. That is the greatest, the owner of love, Allah. But that is a journey in heaven. That's why it's eternal. Because once you found eternity in heaven, you found God. Because God is eternal. So dua in this is to build the spaces to God. So the greatest dua is that dua that you hope God plans for your life. You dua upon what Allah sees the best for you. That's the greatest dua. The greatest dua is for you to feel that in performing dua, you are showing your submission to God. Because He asked you to ask, you are following His command to ask. So that's the greatest dua. Because you believe in His plan. While you work hard on earth, fulfilling your dreams, that's your right to do that. Do. You have a short time in this life. Attain what you want to attain within your mind and your vision that you're able to attain. But remember, those attainments won't be as sweet if it is not accompanied by God's wish for you. Because the greatest wish that God had was to create you and He created. And He wants to see the end for all of us to be in Jannah, to be with Him. That's the biggest wish from Allah and from Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and from all the prophets who have came before the Prophet Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam. All their wishes were for them to bring their community, their ummah, into the grace of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So this is just an overview of the power of dua. I'm not giving the pointers lah. I hope you understand it won't be like that. Learning faith is not like learning friction. Friction, there's theories, right? Learning faith is experiencing. Learning faith is by the book, yes, amal. Ilm, amal. Knowledge and putting it into practice. That is faith. It's not about knowing. Can be a genius. Islam has never taught you to know Islam as a genius. You don't need. But you need to know Islam so that you have faith in what you know and you act upon that you know. So Allah asks you to dua. We're full of humanity and certainty that your dua will be responded by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That's the power of dua. How many minutes do we have? 3 minutes. That's very good. So then we open for questions and answers. So we can open now.
Thank you, Ustaz Faisal, for such an enlightening session. I'm sure for all of us here, including myself, the talk really provides a beneficial medium on how one can ensure that the importance of dua stick with us till the end of time. Now we will move on to the Q&A session. Once again, if you have any questions, please feel free to message your questions to the number shown on the screen. What if all are not answered? To increase our faith, what should we do? Should we just keep making dua?
What if all of this are answered?
To increase our faith, what should we do? Should we just keep making dua?
Increase our faith or faith in Allah?
To increase our faith for Islam.
So, if our dua is not responded, should we continue to perform that dua, right? When do we stop? Never stop. As simple as that. Don't stop. Don't stop. There are specific dua, khusus, there are general dua, right? There are specific dua in terms of specific things. Oh Allah, I want, what? Give me one thing you want. What is that? I want a car, oh Allah, I want a car. Then I dua. Then you hope for it to happen when? When you start going to the car shop. Like, as simple as that. Specific dua that you have, you need to understand first, having plan. First we have to have a plan, right, in life, a vision, what we want to attain, right? And then we work for what we want to attain. And Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he knew that he could not live in Mecca. After 13 years, he tried, right? So what did he do first? He went to Taif, right? So that his hope was, so that him and his companions, they would be at peace in their submission to God. That was the aim. He wants peace, right? But upon reaching into Taif, those people who live in Taif reacted negatively to him, which he did not even thought of. Like, he thought they would accept him, right? So what was that vision of the Prophet? Is that he wants to attain peace. Did he just sit down in a corner of his house and ask Allah? And if he were to do that, is it impossible to happen? Yeah, it can happen, no problem. But he's teaching us that there's a process. So you need to understand this process. So whatever that you want, process it. And then, while waiting for that process to happen, ask Allah. You have certainty. If you have put your effort, then let's say, for example, you don't, suddenly you fail. Don't forget me. I failed my O-levels, right? I told you. Right. I also doa at that particular time for me to pass. But I slept. I didn't even doa to sleep in exam, never. But the opposite happened. But, the lesson is teaching me today. Some things that happen, even if it's against our doa, there will be an answer to that doa in Allah's time. Allow that to happen now. Allow that space. Did you choose to be born in this century? Did you choose? None of us chose. Right? And have we accepted that we are born in this century? In Singapore, now sitting under this roof? Are we accepting it, or you're still regretting it? You still think I should have been born with Bilal ibn Rabah. But Bilal, you know what happened to him? How difficult his life was? If it was given to us, my goodness, would we be in the company of Abu Jahl, or we would be in the company of Bilal? You might not know, because Abu Jahl was living the luxury, the happy life. The Prophet's companions was the worst lot, and they were looked down upon by all. Right? Allow time to happen. Failures or seems no response is not the answer to your dua. It's the answer to see how truthful, how patient you are to God. This is seeking from Him. Right?
Ustaz, are there any amal or things that you can do to increase the chance of our dua being accepted?
Very good. Number one, ibadah. We are told to do these 5 things, right? Shahada, Shahada la ilaha illallah, Shahada Muhammadur Rasulullah. Number 2, prayer, right? The key thing out of these 5 that we have to do daily is only these 5. Right? These 5 daily prayers. Right? So you have to cement your path in connecting yourself to God. Each and every one of you has this soul. Means you have already cemented. This is the path that I am going to sit upon. My sajadah is the sajadah that is meant for me. And on that sajadah is where I build my connection with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That is the greatest amal. And then from there I continuously learn. Don't be fooled by shaitan. The greatest shaitan's ploy is what? When you think that your sajadah is great, when you think your songko is greater than others, when you think your ibadah is good enough, don't be fooled. Shaitan does to fool the best of men. Who are we? Nothing. So, key is humbleness, humility. Always a student until death. always a servant to Allah, trying to be a servant to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Humbleness, cultivate it in your life. Then you will see miracles happen. And Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam was one of the most humblest men to Allah. But he holds the key to Jannah. So we follow him. The easiest example. Humble. Simple. Simple to be humble. How? Humility lies where? Where is humility? You can dress any way you like. Don't be fooled by those who say humility is wearing patches. That itself is arrogance. When you believe that one way of wearing is defining your humility. Your humility is when you wear whatever is there for you to wear. Within your means, if you're rich, wear as you are rich. Understand? Means you're pleased with the ni'mah that Allah has given you. So live within your means. If your means is great, live within that. Nabi Sulaiman lived within his means. Sayyidina Abdul Rahman bin Auf lived within their means. The companions lived within their means. And then don't forget to give a part with zakat, right? To give a part. Sadaqah, zakat. These are all part of you understanding that all that you have attained is to be given also to the path of Allah. So the process of asking dua is that first you start with thankfulness to Allah. With a simple Alhamdulillah. But you need to understand what you say here. Because we don't understand the Arabic language and we memorize, right? And then it becomes so ritualized for us. That is why sometimes our dua is not attained. Because we don't even understand what we ask. Right? We're like kindergarten students, thinking that we know. Yet we do not even know what we are reading. Right? We can't. If you are really serious on the dua that you are asking, you need to understand the dua that you are asking. So you can use Quranic dua. ربنا آتنا في الدنيا حسنة وفي الآخرة حسنة وقنا ربنا افتح بيننا وبين قومنا بالحق وأنت خير الفاتحين ربنا ظلمنا أنفسنا وإن تغفر لنا وترحمنا لنكن so many Quran dua. You can use all those, not a problem. But understand. More importantly, if you take it from the Quran, understand the context of the Quran. The tafsir. This is dua Nabi Shu'aib. This is dua Nabi Adam. This is dua Nabi Lut. There's so many in the Quran. This is dua Ashabul Kahfi. ربنا آتنا من لدنك رحمة وهيئ لنا من أمرنا رشدا. Ashabul Kahfi. Dua Asya. You know, the lady, the wife of Fir'aun. Her dua is one of the things that is left archived in the Quran. Rabbi ibni li indaka baytan fil jannah. One of the simplest, most beautiful dua is by this woman in the Quran. Rabbi ibni li indaka baytan fil jannah. She lived with the worst creation of God, Pharaoh. Right? He killed thousands of babies. Right? And she witnessed that. And that particular baby that was not killed, that was supposed to be killed, entered into her house. And she was the one who pleaded to Pharaoh to let this one live. Removes that, right? And then she saw the ruthlessness of the husband. Her stress level, I think, mental health, confirmed. Right? Because she lives with Pharaoh. But what is that thing, the one word, that one kalam of her that Allah archived in the Quran? One of the biggest lessons from the most stressful wife on earth, right? The wife of Pharaoh, Asya, her name. Rabbi, O Allah, ibni, build for me. Rabbi ibni li, build for me. O Allah, build for me. Indaka, beside you. Inshallah, beside Allah. Baitan, a house in Jannah. So simple, right? The dua. Has it been answered? But it remains. So the dua does not mean that it needs to be answered on that day, but it remains in Allah's memory to be taught to others in that so drastic and so difficult moment in the life of that lady. And we are taught from that. So her difficulties is a lesson for all women who read the Quran. If you have difficult household, remember Asia, she has the worst husband. Right? So if you're not married, so one day you get husband, don't forget Asia. That is one of the lessons that Allah has taught in the Quran. Even if you can't settle your problems in your marriage, let go and let God. Let God, not for it to be settled here on earth, let Allah. Because she won't be with Fir'aun in Jannah. She won't be. She will be with God in the earth. So we need to understand the vision of all these people in terms of the power of their dua to Allah, which remains in the Quran for us to learn.
Can we ask dua in the language that we know, or is it encouraged to ask in Arab and understand it?
Very good. Asia's dua was not in Arabic, because she does not speak Arabic. She spoke, Nabi Musa spoke what language? Hebrew. Now you say Israel. Julius. You forgot. But majority of the stories of the Prophet are the Prophet of Israel. Israel is the name of Nabi Yaqub. Bani Israel are the sons of Yaqub. And Islam puts them on a high pedestal in terms of faith. So don't be fooled by media. This is part of the media that because we don't understand our text. So when we talk about Israel, we bang. There's so many lessons from the sons of Israel in the Quran. We are fine, we are all cousins. Nabi Muhammad never had any hatred to any of the prophets. Nabi Muhammad met all of them when he Mi'raj. And he very fond with all of them. He stayed with the Nabi Musa, continuously talked to Nabi Muhammad, persuaded him, no, cannot, your ummah won't stand. If not for that Israelite, Moses will be praying 50 times, mati. 5 waktu kita mati. So that is the truth of what Moses knew, that he advised upon Nabi Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And Allah allowed that to happen because Allah wanted to teach us a big lesson and learn from others. Don't believe that you have absolute knowledge. Nabi Muhammad talked to Allah, met Allah. Nabi Moses wanted that throughout his life until death, never able to. Nabi Muhammad was able to, yet upon returning from that wish that was wished by Moses, that person whose dua was not even answered by God, for him to be able to meet God directly, advised the person who attained what he wanted. You see the dynamics of God? And then the dynamics of human relations, the prophetic relations, mashallah. They are teaching us humanity. But now all of us are black and white. Yahudi, mati. Apa ni? Israel is like, there's so many, the Quran teaches us the story of Israel. We are being played by the media today because we do not base our analyzing of these events to the Quranic message. This is our time. So you can so emotionally tied. He meant it for us to be like that. So don't be fooled by fools. Right? Go back to the Quran. Quran teaches beautiful humanity values, humanitarian values, and prophetic values.
In the interest of time, I have one last question. We make so many major sins. How can our dua be accepted?
Who does not sin? Who does not sin? The greatest sinner is that sinner who caused us to live on this earth. That's the greatest sinner. You understand? Who? Nabi Adam alayhi salam. We were all meant to live on in heaven, enjoying everything except that tree. The fruit from that tree, but our father says, never mind lah, we eat lah. Problem, right? Right. That's the reality. Quran teaches us this. We're not damning Nabi Adam, no. Nabi Adam is teaching us that's our reality. That God has meant it to be like that. You, because you are my children, we have this trait. Allah says, don't do this, we do it. It's not Nabi Adam, it's us. Because we are not built without trial to be Ahlul Jannah yet. We need to be tested. We need to go for exams, then to understand friction. Then we become the expert. We need to, this is how it is. Allah does not know, you think? Allah knows. So Allah wants us to be perfected, to be in a perfected Jannah. If not, that's why it happened. And he's the chosen one. If kena ask, then most probably we forgot to even say Rabbana zalamna anfusana wa illam taghfir lana wa tarhamna lanakunanna minal khasirin. One of the greatest dua of a sinner is taught by our father and Hawa and the mother. Rabbana, it's nahnu. It's not him, no. Both of us. It is us. Oh Lord, we have transgressed upon our soul. And it is not only because if it is not for your mercy, we will be condemned. He understood that. That is love. That is regret. He understood regret. And he's teaching us to understand this unseen realities of our soul. There will be regret, there will be love. There's hope, there's rajat. There's fear, there's hope. So don't only live in fear. You can't. You'll be depressed. With your fear, seek hope. Then you'll find the reality of life. It's meant to be that way. It's meant to be that way. You see people being killed. Sometimes you see, oh, I'm agitated, right? But you have to see the hope in there. Because we don't see that. So we have to first go back to ourselves. We are too busy by the world today. The companions of the Prophet, even the Prophet, they had a time in their life which was meant for molding their own soul. Nabi Muhammad, 40 years. Muhammad went to work it out, right? For himself, to understand his journey. Today, we are so concerned with the world. We forgot us. Me. When it becomes me, it is selfie. It is the food that I eat. It is so materialistic. It is so plastic. It's so plastic. And we understand that. We know it's plastic. When we post this, we know it is plastic. We know the food is not nice. Right? The picture is beautiful. Right? The cost is expensive. Right? Then I have to work another 1 month to get a better picture. Right? We understand that now, but we live with that plasticity. So we have to return to the reality of who we are. That's the beauty of life. Bilal bin Rabah lived as a poor man, living and happily as a poor man. Abu Bakr lived as a rich man, living happily as a rich man. Nabi Muhammad lived as a what? As a prophet. And he plays different roles. That's why he has 201 names. And then we talk about Dalailul Khairat. You know Dalailul Khairat, this is the kitab of the Salawat to Nabi Muhammad written by Imam al-Jazuli. Imam al-Jazuli once, I'll just take another 5 minutes. He's a great faqih, great scholar. It was 600 years ago. A great scholar, Imam al-Jazuli. So once he was stranded in the desert. Right? So he came upon a well. Because at that time they didn't have PUB. They have to go to the well to drink, right? Okay. No, you have to put the right picture, right? Sometimes you say, why you cannot take back time? So he has to go to that well. And then when he reached upon the well, he could not scoop the water because there's no, what do we call it? Cup. Boleh lah cup. Because we are the wellness people, right? So we don't understand those terms lah. So he couldn't get, he can see the water, but he was not able to drink. So desperate. One lady came, and then she spat. So she spat. She spat into the well. Automatically, upon that, the water gushes up, and he was able to collect the water and drink from that well. He was so, the power of this lady. Islam has a lot of lady stories throughout. So don't be like inferior. The world is telling us there's all this feminism. In Islam, no worries. Actually, there's none. Everything is the same. Sabila, qanitat. The Qur'an is so equal in the sense of your relationship to God. So equal. So she did that. So Imam Jazuli said, how were you able to do that? Out of nowhere, this lady says, Jazuli, you're so a well-known scholar. He was so first shocked that she knew him. At that time, no Facebook. So she had this. She's Awliya Illah Sani, this lady. So she says, I was able to do that due to the barakah of salawat to the Prophet. Allahumma salli ala Sayyidina Muhammad wa ala Sayyidina Muhammad. Because of that, she was able to do that. Right? Now you have all the knowledge and you're even able to scoop water from a well. What's the use of all this knowledge? Right? So what Imam Suzi realized from that particular moment was that I need to compile whatever available salawat that there were at that time of the Prophet. So what he did was he compiled. So there's this. He's compiled the names of the Prophet found in Hadith in the Qur'an. There's 201 names of the Prophet. And then compiled all the salawats. Then it becomes this book, Dalailul Khairat. What is called here, this gathering is called Guide to Goodness. Dalailul Khairat. Guide to Goodness. So this is a book that was before 100 years ago. You know what happened in Arabia 100 years ago? 1927, 1929, you know what happened? Read your history. Before the coming of this black period in our time. In Medina, in Mecca, whenever the shelves, there's the Qur'an, the next is the Dalailul Khairat. Qur'an, Dalailul Khairat. Because Qur'an is Allah's word. Dalailul Khairat is salawat to the Prophet Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. And he divides it into daily recitation. So Monday, so you read salawat, Tuesdays, until Sundays. So this we need to revive. Just now we talk about connectedness to Allah, but remember, we receive the message of Allah through Nabi Muhammad Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. So reconnect yourself to the Prophet too. Don't forget the Prophet, because it is La ilaha illallah Muhammadur Rasulullah. So you have that role that you need to play in this life. Reconnect yourself to Allah through dua and ibadah. Reconnect yourself to the Muhammad through salawat and performing what you're able of his example and his akhlaq. That is one of the greatest. So the Dalailul Khairat you can find online, or you can go Wata Books, go wherever, or you can go. I'm always at Khadijah Mosque on Thursdays. We read it, and then we are reaching Rabiul Awwal, right? In 2 weeks' time. On the 28th of October is the first Rabiul Awwal. And Muhammad left Medina, he left Mecca on the 1st of Rabiul Awwal. He reached Kuba on the 10th of Rabiul Awwal. He entered into Medina 12th of Rabiul Awwal. There are at least 3 significant events in the life of the Prophet that happened on 12th Rabiul Awwal. Number 1, you know Rabiul Awwal, right? Which month in the Islam calendar? Was the first month in the Islam calendar? Muharram was the second month in the Islam calendar. Safar was the third month. Third month. March. Right? So the third month. Nabi Muhammad was born 12 Rabiul Awal. Nabi Muhammad reached Hijrah to Medina 12 Rabiul Awal. Nabi Muhammad passed away 12 Rabiul Awal. If Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has destined the fate of Nabi Muhammad in all these important moments by 12th of Rabiul Awal, doesn't it strike upon you to celebrate 12th of Rabiul Awal? There's a significance to that date, and never in the history of all the other prophets that things happened in Rabiul Awal, except Nabi Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. It was given to him this month. So we celebrate it, and this has been our tradition for many, many years, especially in our Nusantara field, and also in Yemen, in many different parts in Egypt. You can see all these celebrations of the birth of Nabi Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So I would invite all of you from the 1st of Rabiul Awal, which is 28th of October, until the 8th of November, which is 12th Rabiul Awal, we read the story of the Prophet from the book Ad-Dayban. This is a hadith book that talks about the beauty of the character of the Prophet and the life of the Prophet and his birth. So we read it from Maghrib to Isha. After Isha, we'll read the Laylatul Khairat, and then we'll end with Makan Biryani. So if you don't come for the Maulid, come for the Makan. Okay? So all of you are invited. Make yourself accustomed, habituate yourself to this kind of majlis, because this is a tradition of the Prophet. Majlis is a tradition of the Prophet. So if you cut yourself from this spiritual link, you'll only be based upon your mental strength. Because there will be times that you need your spiritual strength to help you out in life. So you need to be present in this kind of majlis. So I will invite all of you. Hadijah Mosque, Lorong 29. I'll be there. Of course, I'll invite a place that I am in. I can invite you to other places. And alhamdulillah, in Singapore, we have a lot of majlis. So do come. Don't make yourself like you feel inferior to mosque. Don't feel inferior to mosque, because mosque is, masjid is the place of sujood. You won't get i'tikaf sitting here. You get masjid is where i'tikaf is meant for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, that place. So be accustomed, habituate yourself to masjid and the majlis in masjid. And I have another event I will share with you this Thursday from Isha at Hadijah Mosque also. We have this forum chaired by myself, Ustaz Dr. Muhammad, and our Mufti, our Deputy Mufti, Dr. Nazir. We're talking about the elements of fatwa. I think it will be good if you want to learn more deeper about what constitutes fatwa. Because your time is a lot of sharing Google, right? So you have to understand directly from a Mufti, then you will understand the dynamics. And learn, continuous learning. I've been learning until today, inshallah, until my death. Because learning is a beautiful journey. There's always something new to learn.
With that, this marks the end of the Q&A. For those who have yet to get the questions addressed, I'm truly sorry, and I sincerely pray that you have managed or will manage to find the answers to them through Ustaz Faisal sharing the other questions. May Allah guide us always in our path towards Him and our beloved Prophet Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, inshallah.